Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is perhaps one of the most well-known stories in all of literature, and yet, when studied, it seems also to be one of the most egregiously misquoted stories. As a former examiner of about a decade, I can't help but blame Baz Luhrmann a little. The number of GCSE exam responses making reference to guns, car chases, and fish tanks was beyond a joke. To that end, I'm gonna set the record straight. 10 true quotations telling the story as Shakespeare did, and some of my own potted analysis and snippets of contextual knowledge that you can throw into your essays today. Let's get into it. Before we get into today's video, guys, I've got a free resource for you. You can find it in the link in the description. I'm going to give you a set of flashcards with all of the quotations from today, as well as points from today's video. All you need to do, click the link, fill in your details, and I'll send it straight over. Quote number 1 comes from the prologue and lays the foundations for a play utterly obsessed with the concept of fate and inevitability. Remember, the prologue is the play in microcosm, and the very first thing the audience gets to see. The standout line is, of course, "From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life." 2 lines positively teeming with significance. But what can you say about them? Well, the literary significance of loins is well established, so let's not go there. Suffice it to say, Shakespeare isn't being anatomical here, but figurative. The loins are the hub of procreative power. And if those loins are fatal, then the progeny that comes forth from them, in the form of Romeo and Juliet, doomed. It's not their romance that dooms them, but rather, before they're even born, their respective fathers, the two foes. Then star-crossed, an adjective that is heinously misappropriated, taken just to mean fated, an enormous undersell, because to be star-crossed is not just to have been fated to meet, but further to have been crossed or betrayed by the stars or the fates. Betrayed by destiny, as written in the stars. Now, Elizabeth I had her own live-in astrologist, and 16th and 17th century societies bought into that whole thing with fervor, so it's worth putting aside any judgment you might have about star signs and accepting that any mention of stars in this play, it's pointing out the role of the fates. Remember that fact for later. My favourite thing about this quotation, though, is the grammar. A decision was made to have it be a pair of star-crossed lovers, not just 2 star-crossed lovers, taking their lives. Because a pair, singular, it means it can be a life that is taken, not lives as it would have to be if it were written as 2 lovers. In essence, it was just one life taken, that of Romeo and Juliet together, their shared existence, their future. Ooh. And before you go calling me out about my commitment to the granular dissection and say,
"Shakespeare wasn't thinking about all that when he wrote it, sir,"
take a second to recognise that it's a sonnet, the prologue. Just 14 lines, 106 words, tightly constrained by iambic pentameter and a strict alternating rhyme scheme. The very first words of the play, the first impression. So yes, it was worked with precision and underwent infinite revision, so hold off on the derision. I said what I said. Quote number 2 comes from the first proper scene following the prologue. Act 1, Scene 1. In among the opening brawl that sets the tone for this play's obsession with violence. The brawl was instigated by some servants of the respective households, but quickly draws in the bigger names, the respective cousins, Tybalt and Benvolio, of our eponymous lovers. This saucy little quote is from the saucy boy, Tybalt, who says to Benvolio, "Dear sweet Benvolio, what? Drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee," and then starts chasing him down with a sword. Now, not only does this quotation encapsulate the absolute misanthropy of Tybalt Capulet, but also a fierce rejection of any attempts at harmony in the play, without a good reason. It's as if there is an outside force compelling the violence to continue. Tybalt clings to the fact that Benvolio is drawn, meaning his sword is out, incidentally in an effort to quell the violence, not to stoke it. And that is sufficient excuse to launch into an attack? No, Tybalt, it is not a good reason to kill a man. There is an almost supernatural impetus behind this violence. A callback to the prologue's promise that, but for their children's end, naught could remove the ongoing feud between the families. Benvolio certainly isn't going to manage it solo. Obviously, the tricolon, or tripling, or rule of 3 matters, and everyone loves to talk about it, just like the alliteration that I deliberately overlooked in the first quote, from, forth, fatal, foes. But it is not just a rhetorical flourish. What makes up that 3? Hell, the Montague family, and Benvolio. Contained in the trio, the things that are equated but discrete, okay? Equating the Montagues with hell is a fairly pedestrian insult from Tybalt. But in claiming to hate hell, Tybalt aligns himself with heaven, the angels, the side of good. Much like later when he counts it not a sin to strike Romeo dead for crashing his party, Tybalt's violent rage is reformulated as a virtuous, almost holy trait. This whole play is full of contradiction, but Tybalt, hating peace and vowing various murders whilst also laying claim to the side of virtue, really takes the crown for most unhinged delusion. Finally, it's tautological for him to say all Montagues and thee when Benvolio is a Montague. So why the additional hatred? Is it because Benvolio is this play's most outspoken advocate of peace, above even Prince Escalus and Friar Lawrence? Is it because Tybalt seeks any justification to enact the violence he's so obsessed with? These are the questions to ask. The third quotation I want to look at today comes from Benvolio himself, but this time directed at Romeo later on in the opening scene. When we first meet Romeo, he is away from the fray of the brawl, skulking and sulking, a lovesick puppy pining after the willfully chaste and apparently savvy, if the friar's read is accurate, and it always is, Rosaline. His broken heart renders him miserable and, quite frankly, awful company for his fellow Montague teens, who themselves are understandably more interested in the hedonic frivolity than Romeo's Petrarch and longing for an unattainable woman. Accordingly, Benvolio insists that Romeo can be happier, forgetting by giving liberty unto thine eyes. Examine other beauties, he suggests. This quotation is significant as a moment in that it signposts the Capulet party, whereupon other beauties will be examined, and Rosaline supplanted by Juliet, her cousin, lest we forget, in Romeo's affections. This suggestion is enormously loaded. Everything is ripe for a major twist. The party being a masquerade ball allows them anonymous entry, right? Juliet being encouraged to look upon the potential husband, Paris, not Romeo, but whoops, means a romance is potentiated. Lord Capulet throwing the party ensures that only Capulets and their kin will attend, other than the gatecrashers, meaning both that an unholy union of Montague and Capulet will happen, and that Tybalt will have a reason to seek vengeance on Romeo. So yeah, big deal. But beyond that, getting linguistic, look at how Benvolio phrases his advice. Most students using this quotation focus on the imperative examine, and generically assert that Benvolio is taking charge. Not interesting, not accurate. His choice of language beyond this is way more interesting and enlightening, because it is very specific. Eyes and beauties, he says, rather than, say, heart and paramours, revealing what Friar Lawrence already knows about Romeo, that young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. That Romeo's infatuation with Rosaline is skin deep, visual, and then that this obsession keeps him unnecessary prisoner. He can give liberty or freedom to his own eyes if he so chooses. Other beauties there will be. Intriguingly too, there is some ambiguity. Is Benvolio misogynistically reducing women at the party to their beauty, or is he cleverly joining Romeo at his own superficial level? Whatever the case, our next quote, number 4, hammers home Romeo's false equivalence of love with a base admiration of beauty. So here's the context. Romeo agrees to attend the party, especially knowing Rosaline will be in attendance, and within the first few minutes of arrival, he spots Juliet from afar and says, without a touch of self-awareness, "Did my heart love till now? Forswear its sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night." My guy has instantly forgotten his love for Rosaline upon seeing her cousin just 4 scenes later. But notice once again the language. Whilst he claims that it is his heart doing the perceiving, and what it is love that he's feeling, he nevertheless foregrounds sight once more as the thing which must forswear or disavow that love. And the true beauty he saw this night. Romeo following his eyes more than his mind or even heart, his fickleness, his general reckless impulsivity, these traits combine into his hamartia, or fatal flaw as the tragic hero. Hot-headedness. He's a teenager though, we must remember, because otherwise it would be incredibly hard to sympathize with him. This moment represents the beginning of the end for the lovers. If the party itself is the enabler, the vehicle that carries the tragic romance into view, then this line is the full beam headlights, the blindingly obvious warning sign that everything is about to kick off. And if we want to continue with this analogy, then Tybalt's commitment to bitterest gall in the lines immediately following this, again, it's a catalyst of enormous proportion, is the blasting of the car horn. There is no ignoring this freewheeling, careening vehicle now. You've just got to accept it. A collision is coming. But wait, there is more from this part of the play. The next one, quote 5, is from Juliet, later on in the same scene, and it is such a wonderful representation of her fullness as a character, especially in comparison with the older but less mature Romeo. When Romeo thinks he's being all suave and seductive, using religious imagery and cleverness to extract a kiss from Juliet, he ought to be taken aback when she remarks, post-kiss, then have my lips the sin that they have took. In short, she's saying, hang on, you claimed your lips had sin and that I could expunge it, but now you've put that sin onto my mouth. She is saying in no uncertain terms that she wants another kiss, that she enjoyed the first, that she has been in control of this exchange and its rate of progress from the start. So when she then allows Romeo to make the suggestion in response to take back his sin, i.e. to kiss again, it is a kindness on her part, permitting his masculinity to exit unharmed because these kisses were therefore his idea. In reality, Juliet is in the driving seat. She wants to be physical and demonstrative just as much as Romeo does, and so she holds his hand through the seduction process. She's a smart cookie and she gets what she wants. What makes this line so effective though is not just the line itself, but its position in their exchange. The two lovers have just co-delivered a complete Shakespearean sonnet, the ultimate demonstration of love, with the final line, "Then move not while my prayers effect I take," from Romeo completing the ultimate rhyming couplet and leading to the kiss, his ultimate destination. He reflects on this concluded exchange with the triumphant, "Thus from my lips, by thine, my sin is purged," to wrap it up. It's over in Romeo's eyes, but Juliet isn't finished yet. She launches back into a fresh ABAB stanza with the quote I just spoke about, extending the sonnet beyond its limits, because she will not settle for the strictness of either poetry or courtly love. Contextually, courtly love places the play in the early Renaissance where this type of courting was in vogue, and it is in keeping with the gatekeeper role of the targeted lady. In snatching power, in getting physical satisfaction from the hapless Romeo, Juliet is girl bossing, as they say. But she's not always so self-assured, as the next quote, the 6th quote of the video, will show. When the dust has settled from the party, and the nurse has neatly informed both lovers of the other's familial association, we are into Act 2, and Juliet is alone, or so she thinks, often depicted on a balcony, so Romeo can feasibly overhear her intended soliloquy. And she is all Wednesday's child, full of woe. Right? She delivers perhaps the most famously misinterpreted line in all of literature ever when she asks rhetorically, "O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" Now, why is it misinterpreted? Well, because wherefore doesn't mean where. Why would she be wondering where Romeo is? Why would she be addressing him when he's not there? She's not invited him, though he's turned up anyway, for the 2nd time tonight, the naughty boy, and his whereabouts are really not the top of her priorities right now. Note the lack of evocative comma. She's not talking to Romeo, but about him. Wherefore, in fact, means why. She is not asking, in earnest, where Romeo is, but rather why he is, why he must be Romeo. This lament is one she goes on to expand on, to clarify, with all the mentions of name being in conflict with who one really is, because a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. What she asks, rhetorically, not in earnest, is why he has to carry the association with his identity, that of a sworn enemy, of a Montague. She argues that it is not in his soul nor his body that the name resides, and wishes they could either or both cast off their names and family trappings, simply to unite as man and woman. A master rationalizer, at all points in the play, she's able to come to a convenient conclusion, that she can separate Romeo from his family in her head, compartmentalize him, and continue to love him. Sorted. We see absolutely no such rationalizing or logic from Romeo. He latches onto her language about naming, yeah, but only once she has brought it up. He seems blithely ignorant of the significance of their family feud, and is, as the chorus attests at the start of the scene, still bewitched by the charm of looks. In short, Juliet has her head switched on, and Romeo does not. Doofus. And speaking of doofus, we're going to zoom ahead a little in the play for our next quote. From Act 2, Scene 2 to Act 3, Scene 3. In the interim, the couple use their connections, the friar and the nurse, to get married in secret. Tybalt seeks revenge on Romeo, as promised, for gatecrashing the party, and ends up accidentally killing Romeo's best friend Mercutio, for which Romeo repays him with instant murder, leading to his actually merciful banishment from Verona to Mantua. Thus, when we arrive at the 7th quotation, he has miserably chastised and prostrated himself in front of Friar Lawrence, who has precisely zero patience for this kind of nonsense. He, the friar, says, "Hast thou slain Tybalt? Wilt thou slay thyself, and slay thy lady that in thy life lives, by doing damned hate upon thyself. A tough love moment exactly when Romeo needs it. What I particularly enjoy about this line, beyond Friar Lawrence's pitch-perfect analysis of Romeo's character, as always, is that he also makes a subtle nod to the awfulness of the late Tybalt. By asking whether Romeo will slay himself and thereby slay Juliet, as well as Tybalt, he equates the literal murder of a citizen with the slaying of an individual man's good nature and his young wife's view of him. The syntactic parallelism of Romeo plus slay plus object, thrice stated, really drives home how tightly equated these behaviours, the literal and metaphorical slaying, are in his mind. Indeed, let it be noted that whilst murder is an actual sin, the thing that the friar calls damned is the self-hatred Romeo is practicing now in his histrionics. In short, I don't think Friar Lawrence was Tybalt's biggest fan. His loyalty is with the lovers, regardless of how foolish they appear to him. Friar Lawrence, for all his flaws and failings, knows Romeo inside out. He knows that inculpating Romeo in the slaying of Juliet will motivate him to get his act together, hence the claim that Romeo will slay his lady that in his life lives, by damning himself with hate. He does indeed get Romeo's attention and enough cooperation to get himself to safety off the back of this point. What he fails to recognise, though, hello dramatic irony, is that he is in fact foreshadowing the end of the play. Romeo slaying himself, and by extension Juliet, off the back of his slaying of Tybalt. Be careful what you wish for, Friar. Also, neat little dramatic irony foreshadowing double dip there, if you want to record more literary devices in your essays. Okay, so moving on, Juliet has had a nightmare of a day. She's waiting for her wedding night, and I hope we all realise what that means. She's very excited, bless her, when she receives news that her cousin is dead, and at the hands of her new husband, no less. She's horrified by the news, curses Romeo's apparent duplicity, being lovely on the surface and cold-hearted beneath, but then tells herself off for cursing her new husband's name and forgives him fast. They get to have their wedding night. Yay! But then Romeo must flee once more to Mantua. Boo. Things get quickly worse for Juliet though, as her father decides that she is indeed old enough to marry Paris, and then, when she hesitates, threatens her, in quote number 8 of this video, from Act 3, Scene 5, "And you be mine, I'll give you to my friend. And you be not, hang, beg, starve, die in the streets." Father of the year, am I right? So to clarify, the word "an" is not a determiner here as per modern usage. It's a conjunction and functions like if. He's giving her an ultimatum. If she wants to be his daughter, remain a Capulet, then she will marry Paris. If she doesn't, she can go and die alone, being disowned instantly. The outlook is bleak. No wonder she seeks out the friar's help. The contextual links here are obvious. In a word, patriarchy. The play was written in the late 16th century in England, but was set at least 100 and possibly 200 years earlier in Italy. In very early Renaissance Italy, and long after, and basically everywhere else, men did indeed own their daughters, hence the possessive pronoun mine, and the transactional verb give in the first sentence. This is the same patriarchal system that prevented Juliet from ever leaving the family home before being married, and thereafter owned by another man, a husband. A barrier to her social life, her freedom to marry Romeo, and indeed a true grasp of the outside world. Lord Capulet's line here is brutally harsh. Total destitution and death await her if she does not obey. It's an empty threat, of course. He presumes that she will comply with his wishes, and so he can be as extreme as he likes in his imagery, especially as Juliet knows no better. Maybe she would indeed die in the streets. Things aren't going well for her, but they're about to get worse. So, let's fill in the gaps between this and the 9th quotation from Act 5. Juliet flees, as I mentioned, to the friar, precipitated by a perceived betrayal by the nurse who opts to endorse her marriage to Paris. The friar, ever sympathetic, ever misguided, hatches a plan to free her of her obligations and be with Romeo. Play dead with the help of a special drug, and be met upon waking by Romeo, to whom Friar Lawrence will send an explanatory note, whereupon she will be taken to Mantua to be with Romeo, the husband she chose. Of course, he doesn't bother to tell Romeo directly, nor to deliver the note directly, nor even to entrust it to someone who will inform him when it can't be delivered due to a plague-necessitated quarantine. So Romeo gets no note about the plan, just news of Juliet's death. Ever the hothead, he rides back to Verona, collecting poison on his way, kills poor Paris outside Juliet's tomb, and then drinks the poison next to Juliet's body just in time for her to wake up and find him freshly dead. Before he dies, he delivers our 9th quote, promising that by taking ownership of his death, he will shake the yoke of inauspicious stars from this world-wearied flesh. Did you notice it? Stars again, fate again. It's worth dissecting this one to pull out its fascinating features. A yoke, not to be confused with a yolk from an egg, different spelling, is a wooden structure placed across the shoulders of oxen to orient them forward and to attach their dragging burdens. A neat metaphor considering that these stars that yoke him, the fates, have waited upon him, controlled his direction of travel, and brought him here. It is ironic and frankly moronic to think that by committing to the predestined path towards death, he is somehow back in control. You may be choosing the poison, Romeo, but the outcome is no less inauspicious or unpromising. You are still dying an untimely death without your love, exactly when and where the fates determined. Just like his earlier claim to defy you stars, he is once again fitting neatly into the exact destiny first laid out in the prologue and reaffirmed throughout the play. Why he thinks he's suddenly in control now, I'll never know. Romeo, in your final moments, you are as useless as ever. Also, world-wearied flesh. Bro, you're like 17. You don't get to call yourself wearied by anything until you're at least 30. So anyway, he dies. Then, so does Juliet, upon waking to his corpse and deciding to join him in death. Everyone then arrives on the scene, also too late. Friar Lawrence, along with Romeo's servant Balthazar and other witnesses, confirm what has come to pass. And Prince Aeschylus commands the patriarchs, Montague and Capulet, to look upon what their feud has cost them, and cost everyone. Upon which revelation, they agreed to become friends, bonded by their shared sorrow and shame. The 10th and final quote from the final scene of the play, Act 5, Scene 3, comes from Lord Montague, Romeo's father, who vows to erect a statue of Juliet in pure gold, so that whilst Verona by that name is known, there shall be no figure at such rate be set as that of true and faithful Juliet. It is a lovely gesture, truly, and shows the man's genuine commitment to the cessation of hostilities, but it's kind of ostentatious. I mean, imagine being one of the citizens of Verona who's not in one of these two warring families. After all the heartache and bloodshed and daily disruption they have brought to the city, these two men decide to erect two huge golden statues, yes, two, as Lord Capulet decides to do one of Romeo as well, in the middle of the city as reminders of it all, to commemorate the abject misery that unfolded there for all to see. You just want to pop to the shops for some bread, and now you're doubling the length of your journey just to circumnavigate these gargantuan gauche effigies of two kids you never knew, like they were celebrities or something. A memento mori. Anyway, it's still a great quote to end on. A heartwarming resolution to the end of the violence, coupled with a glaring reminder of the wealth and influence these puerile, squabbling numpties carried, and all of the damage and good they could do if they put their minds to it. And that's the whole play, in 10 quotes. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. I'm gonna just throw one more free resource at you. It is My Resources. It has an entire rundown of all of the GCSE texts, everything you need to know about them, from plot to characters to themes to key quotations to context, and of course, explainer videos, TikToks, sample responses, everything you need to be prepared for your exams, and it's absolutely free. Click the link in the description and check it out.